When you're not from Boston and you're outside of it, it's very easy to call Boston, white. But then when you live here, you quickly realize that we are here, our history is here, and 25% of Greater Boston is Black.
Being a Bostonian and knowing all these things and seeing the way we're projected and portrayed, watching TV shows where we are not there, or they never go to the parts of the city where we are, it's surreal, but it's also soul crushing, because you know that your story needs to be told and it's not being told. At every turn, Bostonians, especially Black and brown Bostonians, are erased, we're overwritten, and we're forgotten about, and we're treated like we don't exist and we're not part of the experience of the city. And I make it known that we are, always have been, and always will be.
How, in a city that you flat out told me has erased you and has erased, Black and brown people in your experience as you always say, a Black Tino, that's your word. How did you get this sense of pride?
The reason I'm so proud of where I'm from is because, one, it made me who I am, and it gave me the fortitude to be able to stand in a room and tell all these stories and have my voice. I got my voice partly from being erased and being told to be quiet all these times. When you're the little kid that comes up around New Edition and you see their rise and they go and they are huge and they're superstars, and the record label pretty much erases everything Boston about them. Like any famous brown Bostonian artist, writer, actor, they always have their Bostonness or their Bostonian essence erased from them. It's been redone. Now, what's crazy is that right here there's a school, but right there used to be the home that Coretta Martin Luther King Jr. actually lived in after they got married. He used to play basketball at Carter Playground, which was named after a World War I Black veteran. Another place Martin Luther King Jr. lived. This is the only placard to remind people that, Martin Luther King Jr. actually lived here. When people from the neighborhood, my elders, used to tell me all the time, they used to play basketball with them at the court. They used to hang out at people's houses. If I wasn't told these stories when I was a kid, then I would have no idea that it happened. I ain't seen any history books. They sure weren't telling it on any films about Boston. Nothing telling you about the Jazz Corner in Boston is insane, because musicians left Harlem to come play here. Duke Ellington came to Boston so much that kids in the neighborhood used to call him Uncle Earl.
Wow.
And Eddie Levine's was at 425. Wally's Paradise is at 428.
Let's walk over to Wally's.
Yeah. Point out Darryl's. This right here is Darryl's Corner Bar and Kitchen, as it's now known. It used to be Bob the Chef's, one of the most iconic soul food restaurants in the entire region, not just Boston. And it was a community staple along with Slade's.
Growing up both Black and brown, what did your dad teach you about being a Black man who is also Latino?
My dad told me, don't trip, don't be color struck. And he also told me that the only difference between me and my neighbor who's Black is that the slave ships took a different route, and I'm just a Black man who speaks Spanish.
You're a historian and you carry these stories of our culture beyond Boston. What is your earliest, how did you come to be a hip hop historian? What's your earliest memory of music?
Being a little kid, 1979, 1980, and hearing all the new stuff on the radio, hearing all the stories about who did this, who played this record, who did what. I was there for when New Edition first got started. We'd see these guys all the time on grinding, doing shows, girls screaming. Those were my first, introductions to music and the music industry.
And you came of age during not just the era of a New Edition, but the crack era, yes. And also the birth of Source magazine, yeah. Which for both you and I was hip hop Bible for a very long time.
Yeah.
I feel like the Source's Cambridge, Boston roots get erased a lot.
Oh, all the time.
How did that inspire you to kind of use words as your superpower?
So I went to Boston Latin School, oldest school in America, founded in 1635 for the Boston Brahmins to send their children. We had English composition, and we were asked to do a project. And me and my boy Gabriel Cintron decided we were going to do a project about hip hop. So I asked my big brother Dave if I could borrow some of his rap tapes and do an entire presentation about rap. And I did it, and I got an A+. And my teacher pulls me to the side and she says, you know what? You might have a future as a journalist in music. I'm like, no, I don't. And it wasn't until I go to Skippy White's. There was once Savoy Cafe, which was Malcolm X's hangout. And the guy Al behind the counter, tall black guy, glasses, huge afro, hands us this yellow sheet. And that's the first issue of The Source. And that's where it started for me. Seeing The Source right in my backyard.
Now, you have the Book of Dart, Best Damn Hip Hop Writing, period, which is the most Boston title, P.S. Came out and just immediately shot up the music books list.
It was surprised the hell out of me.
And now we have Candace McDuffie.
Yes. Watching
you and then watching her and seeing, you know, like a Ariel Gray and all these Black voices in Boston come to shine and get respect and get the love they deserve. It's important, and people call me a Black voice in Boston, and I appreciate that, but I know how important it is for native Bostonians and people, even if they aren't native, who spent their lives here, to have space and authority. Can you talk about that, like the importance of people who are from here being able to have a say?
It's something I dreamed of happening. Again, because we usually get erased and we usually get overlooked and overwritten, so we never get the opportunity to tell our stories or even be celebrated. It's important to like allow the people that lived that life and experienced it and have a unique say to actually be able to speak their piece and change perceptions that people have that, you know, are stuck in somebody else's idea of Boston versus the reality of it.
I think people don't understand, like, you're the guy that when people want to do a retrospective on something, if they call you, what's it like to hold that type of respect, power, and admiration?
It's funny because I don't think about it, I just do. I love it when artists email me or text me and they ask me, it was like, hey, is this the actual day my album came out?
Who did that last?
LL Cool J got the anniversary of his first album wrong. He thinks it's November 18th when it's actually Friday, November 15th, 1985.
Why do you remember these things?
I have to attach everything to a time and a date in my life. I'm like a time binder, and it's how I keep everything together.
So let's talk about this heartbreak right here.
But this became the new Harriet Tubman house, and growing up as a kid, this was where we had arts, crafts, everything. It was a community center.
And so, now they're tearing it down.
Yeah, now they're tearing it down. So, you know, with gentrification, what happens is you have a whole new set of people that live here, and it doesn't provide the same thing for the community that it does for the one that was here before.
And they don't know the history.
No, and they don't have the same attachment to it. All they know is that it's the Harriet Tubman house. So what happened is they relocated it. It's going to be somewhere else, and they're going to turn it into housing, condos.
Well, and it was built to serve a community that likely will be locked out of living there.
Oh, likely, yes. Absolutely, yes. Well, Harriet Tubman, she's an honorary Bostonian. This neighborhood has always embraced her.
You were talking about how Black women held up this neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, the mother of Roxbury is Melnia Cass, who was also president of the NAACP at one point. She was vital to this community as well. There's nowhere you can go where I've pointed out where it hasn't been spearheaded, maintained, or held together by a black woman.
So from like Melnia Cass to today, Monica Cannon Grant.
Yes.
And from Mother's Lunch to now we're about to go see Nia over at DARRYL'S.
Yes, absolutely.
And standing in front of Harriet Tubman. Black women, and in Boston, particularly in this community of Boston, have been holding it down.
Have been, are, will always.
Amen.
Favorite song out of Boston?
Word to the Mother, the version from Belle Biv DeVoe featuring all the other members of New Edition.
Favorite Celtic of all time?
Robert Parrish.
Favorite Celtic right now?
Jaylen Brown.
I'm about to do something awful to you.
Word.
You ready?
Sure.
Slades or Darryl's?
Oh my God.
What you gonna do with it?
I gotta go with Slades. I'm sorry.
You know, here in the era, the next chapter of the revolution, Black Lives Matter, what is that like for you to be at those protests and hearing those chants about a place that you grew up, that you still are, but everyone else has largely been pushed out of?
They'll never totally get rid of us, because in Methuen Manor, in Douglas Park, in Tent City, which was created because people protested and fought for housing after the death of Martin Luther King Jr., Bostonians are super resilient, and you can try to push us out, you can try to erase us, but damn it, you're gonna know we're here. And I just follow that lead.
Next time on A Beautiful Resistance.
Not many people who look, not yet, that look like me and you have been given this opportunity to hold this space and then thus create space and a path where people after me won't have to go through even what I'm feeling right now. Because it's not just the work of it all, it's about I'm still a Black woman in America,